Hey,
All right, everyone, please welcome Mr. Joseph Gonzalez from Prosperity Bank. He will be doing our presentation today on savings. You guys know in Pathways, we do the call and response. So if you have questions or if we're asking questions, please make sure you participate, put your answers in the chat, or you can just hop on the mic. This is the open session, so please feel free to ask questions and get your answers that you need. Mr. Joseph, it is all yours.
thank you, and I appreciate that. And Tan, you may have to help me with if there are some chat questions on there. I'm not seeing that on my screen, and I'm not sure where to go for that one.
I got you, don't worry.
Cool, thank you. Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for letting me take over today. I wasn't originally supposed to do today's call. I got a email a couple of days ago from my boss saying, hey, we need somebody to jump in and do this. And just to let y'all know, you should not be scared. I've done this before. We're all gonna land safely where we're supposed to go. Actually, honestly, this is what I really like doing, much more than doing my everyday job, which I work for Prosperity Bank, as she mentioned. I work in the compliance department, but specifically in an area of that's called Community Reinvestment Act. That is something that I learned about while I was in college, taking an economics of money and banking class. It was one paragraph in the economics book. We went over it real quick in class, but I ended up finding that interesting, wrote a paper on it, went and interviewed people at different banks that were doing this job. A couple of years later, I finally got a job in this field, and I've been doing it now for about 25 years. So part of it is really engaging with the community. So what I'm doing here, what's sometimes called giving back to the community, is something that I just been doing my entire career, and it's what I've been able to make a career, a living out of. And really, it's something that helps banks. It helps us when you are informed consumers. So if you don't bounce checks, if you can save money, keep money in our bank, hopefully, it helps us. So it's a win-win. You get some knowledge, you get some access to products or things that you might not know about, but we also are developing the customers of the future, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So this topic is very, very important to us in the banking industry. If you don't know how banks work, watch a YouTube video. We make our money off of you guys, and we lend it back out to you guys. And the spread in that is what we make a living off of. And so I will tell you though, banks pay you nothing for your savings. They pay you pretty much zero. You get a free checking account. They're not paying you. You're basically agreeing to have access to the products, and you agree to let us use your money in order for you to be able to cash a check or to save your money or send it wherever you want it to go. So it's very a symbiotic relationship. We can't do what we do without you, and you can't do what you want to do, normal transactions every day without us. But we're going to focus a little bit here. So there's a little, oh, by the way, just so you know, I'm a graduate at University of Houston, went to St. Pius High School on the north side. If you ever been to Minute Maid Park, that church that sits across the street, that was my elementary school. That's where I went. So I'm born in Houston, no different than any of you guys out there, and what I had to do to get to where I am. However, along the way, I have learned the importance of savings, and I'm gonna go through a lot of personal stuff with y'all here today. Feel free to ask me whatever questions you want to. Be happy to answer it. I've got two kids. One just finished college. The other one has got another 6 months, year. I keep getting different answers. The help to pay for that, a lot of that, and we had to save for all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to go over a lot of stuff, and a lot of this today ends up having to do with your personal attitudes towards where you want to get to in life. So stay with me. It'll be interesting. Ask me interesting questions, and I will give you interesting answers. You give me a question of how do you save? I don't know how to answer that. I know how to get you to where you want to get to. I can help you get there, but just simple questions. Think through them a little bit. Give me real hard questions, even personal questions, without, sharing too much. So, because there are other people on the call, but I'm very happy to share whatever I can with you to help you get to where you want to go to. So this is a little pre-training survey that they asked everyone to do. So are y'all all muted? I can let this off mute, or Tan, if you can let this off mute.
Yeah, we're all muted, but we can
Okay.
ask everyone
Oh,
to,
that's right. You can chat it. That's right.
yeah, they can put it in the chat and I can read it out to you.
Okay, cool. So this one's not going to apply to too many of y'all. So it says, please answer the questions. If you receive public benefits, you cannot save money. True or false?
Put your answers in the chat for question 1. Put 1 dot and then true or false.
Cool. 2, your goals and financial decisions are not related to each other. Y'all can go ahead if y'all want to read faster than I ask. 3, saving money is a foundation of financial health. Small amounts can make a big difference over time. True or false? Number 4, there's only one place you can put your savings. True or false? 5, your building savings is only helpful if you can save at least $2,000. True or false? And I'm going to skip that next question because it doesn't even show everything on here, but those 5 are good enough. So what did people say about public benefits? And if you don't know what I mean by public benefits, if you're getting, what used to be called food stamps, now TANF, or different support programs out there, housing assistance, medical assistance, pay for those types of things. And the answer is no, you can save money. There are a few programs out there that limit how much you can have in assets, which, cash is an asset that you do not qualify any longer for some public benefits if you have over a certain amount of assets. And basically, it stands to reason. Why is the government helping you out if you've got access to a bunch of money? If you've got a lot of savings in the bank, it's better to help those who don't have that. So but generally, of course, you can save money. Your goals and financial decisions are not related to each other. Yes, that's an absolute. They are related to each other. So that one's false. We're going to go over that. That's something that's basically essential. In order for you to make decisions, you've got to create some goals, and we're going to talk a lot about that here in the next few minutes. Saving money is a foundation of financial health. Absolutely. You're never going to get anywhere. You're not going to get very far if you don't learn how to save money and allocate your resources to those things that are going to help you to get to where you want to in life. Okay. So there's only one place you can put your savings. Absolutely not. There's all kinds of different places for you to sit money, different vehicles for you to be able to use. And building savings is only helpful if you can save at least $2,000. That is false, of course, as well. And in fact, there are different types of savings that you should do. And a lot of those are under $2,000 each. So we're going to go over a few of those things as well. I used to teach a homebuyer education class. I ran a down payment assistance program for 5 years, helping first-time homebuyers basically access a little extra capital and actually help teach them what things that they were going to be doing as new homeowners. And it was essential that they learned to budget and save money for those costs that come along when you own your own home. So a lot of those things, they were just little pots of money, a lot of them under $2,000, but they probably totaled up more than $2,000 eventually. But each little pot of money has to be dedicated to something and you need to have some self-control of where that money goes to. I'm not going to ask the question, what is savings? I think you all get that. Y'all are all college students. It's putting money aside kind of for that rainy day type of thing. It does not necessarily mean that you're hiding it in a drawer or under a book. There are different ways to save, and we're going to take a look at some of those things. Is spending less money the same as saving money? Not if you spend the rest of the money, right? Not if you just wait to buy something else, unless that is an asset that you're going to be able to hold on to. If you save money on something and you're able to take that savings and buy something that's gold, hopefully you can sell that at a later time and that asset is going to retain its value. That could be seen as a source of savings. There are some communities that will put a lot of money into gold. I used to run a nonprofit here in Houston called Acción Texas. Today they're called Lift Fund. It was a microfinance lender, and we did loans that required collateral. We had an Indian family who had $50,000 worth of gold jewelry that we took as collateral, and we put it in our safety deposit bank box at a bank. And I had to go and inventory that stuff every 6 months just to make sure it was all there. But in some cultures, saving gold is the way they do things. And they were able to use it to get a business loan, and they were able to use that as savings. And of course, if you're not aware, the price of gold over the last 20 years has kind of skyrocketed. That is not only a savings, but it in essence was investment. You can't do that with everything. Comic books, depends on which ones you get. Different collectibles could be a form of savings, but you're taking a risk on those types of things. But there are others that aren't going to lose their value very much, if at all. So to build savings, spend less money and put some or all of what you didn't spend into savings. So yes, go to cheap places, do cheap things, don't spend money, and you will have a much easier time saving money. It's very simple, right? Just, I will tell you, you and your friends are going to go out and do stuff this weekend. Find something cheap or free to do. You don't have to go see the new James Bond movie this weekend. It's going to cost you $8 or $10 just to get in, and the $7, $8 for the popcorn. Go to the park. It's going to be a nice weekend. Going to get down to the 50s. Go do something fun that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg, and save that money for another day. Why save money? So it's going to be reiterated over and over again about goals, and I'm just going to go ahead and get this out there right now. If you don't have goals, you're not going to be very motivated to save money. You've got to figure out at some point where you're going to go in your life. You are all young, I'm assuming. So you want to get somewhere. You want to accomplish some things, whether it's education, buying a car, going on a trip. You need to have some goals in your life. And those are not just all jumbled up into one big list. You need to have short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. For me, my long-term goals aren't that far off anymore. I'm 51 years old. My retirement age for getting the full amount from Social Security happens at age 67. I turned 52 in February. That means I'll have 15 more years to figure out how I'm going to retire or save money for retirement. Well, 25 years ago when I first started on my career, that was a really, really, really long-term goal. That 15 years now is kind of a medium, if not even a short-term goal. I mean, your goals are going to change over time. I could get ill 5 years from now, 10 years from now. All of a sudden, I need money then to retire on rather than 15 years. So that's all very fluid. But when you are creating your goals, you need to have long-term goals, medium-term goals, and short-term goals. For a lot of you, the short-term goals is get out of school, get your first apartment, get your first house, get a decent car that's going to get you to work and back. Or, it could be move to someplace where you don't have to have a car, go to a different city if that's what you want to do, but that's a goal that you need to work towards in the short term. Medium term, it may be, hey, you want to go back and get a master's degree after you've worked a couple of 2 or 3 years. School doesn't get any cheaper. You've got to have money for that. Student loans are there, but you've got to pay that back. It's much better to try to save money for those medium-term goals that you want. And long-term goals, of course, have kids maybe, retire. You can start saving for all of those things right now, even if they're very, very small amounts. Emergencies, that's something that when I first started my first job, when I was 26 years old, I was very lucky. I had a guy who I bugged for 6 months for a job, and he's still my friend. We had lunch yesterday, in fact. He was a loan officer, and I was his associate loan officer. I ran down all his leads for him. Um, he always told me one thing, and that is the rent is always due. So because we were on commission, he told me save 2 months of your salary, put it aside. You don't know what's going to happen. Your deals may not close. You may have to change jobs. Something could happen where you need to put money aside to pay the rent. So I live by that now. I tell my kids that. Everybody that I talk to, the rent is always due. You can't just go and tell your landlord, I can't pay this month. That's happened a lot these days because of the COVID. But eventually, those people are going to be out on the street if their rent doesn't get paid. Hopefully, there's assistance for them out there. You can't always depend on that. So that kind of emergency, you get a car wreck, all those things happen, and you need to have a little bit of money set aside. 2 months of your wages is a good gauge. That's what people say that you should spend on an engagement ring. That's way a lot more than I ever spent. But having 2 months of your salary, when you do have a salary, is something that you want to work towards. Times with less income or more expenses. Some people are self-employed. Their wages go up and down depending on seasonality of what they do. Some people work construction. Sometimes you don't get as much construction work in the winter. So you have to be able to level out what it is that you're doing. Maybe you do something around prom season. Maybe you make mums and you make a lot of money during that time. So you've got to figure out, you've got a budget, figure out how you're going to make ends meet throughout the year. And peace of mind, I'll tell you, when I was teaching home buyer education classes, because I had gone through the experience myself, I would always ask the question of how many of y'all have lost sleep in this process of buying a home? Every single person would always raise their hand because it is tough to sleep at night not knowing what's going on. They're waiting to get their loan approved. They're waiting for inspections on their houses. They're waiting for all these kinds of things that for most people, the most expensive thing they ever buy in their house, and they couldn't sleep. It affects you. Money is a big reason people get divorces. If you have savings, if you have money to pay for your medicine, it makes you a much, much healthier person. Okay. So don't think that this is just about saving to get things. It's also saving money that helps you in your relationships and in your life. How do you save money? Get and keep a job? Well, yeah, sure. I'm not going to spend too much time about that. I will tell you the one thing that I would suggest to you that all of you figure out is, what do you want to do? I know I started in college not knowing what I wanted to do, and you don't get there unless you talk to people. So network, find people to find out what they do. I didn't know what most of the people in the industry I'm in now did. I didn't know this industry existed up until I started talking to people who were in the industry. So if you don't know what you can do, you're not going to get to that in something that you might actually like. I'm just going to see if anybody replies. Any other reason why you would want to save money?
So we have a question.
Sure.
And I want to answer that one that you just asked. Any other reason why you should save money? I feel like kids, like I have kids, and eventually my kids are going to go to college. So that's the reason why I would want to save money, so that they don't have as much student loan and debt to it.
Sure, absolutely. And not only that they have student loan debt, so that you don't have debt. As I said, I helped my kids pay for most of college. They lived at home. They didn't want to go off to college. I was very willing to take out loans for them to go to college, to have that experience, to grow up a little bit.
Right.
They decided to stay home, and that's fine. And they went to junior college the first 2 years, and then they switched over to U of H and Sam Houston. And it's all gone well for them. However, I didn't save money. So now I'm trying to play catch up. So when my retirement comes along, I'm just starting to save money now. And I've got 15 years to do it, crossing my fingers that everything goes well. But you never know. I know my goal, and again, this goes back to goals. My goal was to raise my kids, get them on the right footing for their future.
That's good.
After that, it's gravy. But now I've got to work. Now I can't, I always thought by this time in my life, I was going to be running a nonprofit organization.
Right.
I can't afford to do that right now.
Right.
I've got to play catch up and get some money in the bank
Right.
to be able to do that. So yeah. So what was the question that you said, Tan?
So the question is like, we had a student reply about your question. Another reason they would save money is she stated, I would save money for getting my first apartment or getting a new and reliable car.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I said my kids just moved out. They both moved into the same apartment complex in the same month, but it's crazy. I will tell you, they moved off of Derry Ashford near Memorial, way on the west side of town. $1,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment. 1,500. That's more than I pay for my house note.
I believe it.
I bought my house 20 years ago. I paid $87,000 for it, financed it, but my note at the beginning was around $900.
Right.
$1,500 today should get you a lot more than a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
But hey, my daughter got married. The guy just got out of the Marines. He's coming home. He's getting GI Bill to be able to go to school. All that's working out well for them. But had I not saved money, well, she would have a lot of student loan, and thank goodness she doesn't. So yes, everything, whatever you can think of,
right,
that you want someday in the future, you need to save for, because no one's going to buy it for you.
Right. I feel like pets are also like one that you should like.
Oh, let me get back. You guys, so this emergency line, as Tan was saying, my daughter, as I said, lived with us in college. Well, that didn't stop her from getting a dog. And she went out of town to go visit her husband, who was in San Diego at Camp Pendleton in the Marines. Left the dogs with me, and my wife wanted to take all the dogs for a walk, and we had 3 dogs. And for some reason or another, on this Sunday morning, the post office was delivering Amazon packages. Well, her dog decided to break free, chased the car, got hit by the car, and here I am not wanting to tell my daughter that I killed her dog because I let it go. So about $5,000 in vet bills later, the dog recovers. But $5,000 is a big hit for a dog, So yes, so save for emergencies. But if you care about your dogs, and most people care about their pets, you're going to have pet insurance, that 30, $40 in case of emergencies. And that money's got to come from somewhere. So save money someplace else so that you can take care of those things that are important for you.
Right. There's a comment. So the comment says, pets are a big expense. With my dog going to the emergency room twice for snake bites and major cuts, he has cost several $1,000s. And then the question that was asked is, how much should you have saved to be able to buy a house? Is there a percentage that you would recommend? Great question.
So yeah. And if that is a goal of yours, and I would encourage you to, buying a house is one of the best things that you can do for yourself personally, not simply just because don't buy a house thinking it's a financial investment. It is not. Everybody has always said that for years and years and years and years. And I will tell you, I have helped literally hundreds, if not thousands of people get into their first home. It is not a financial investment. In the long run, it can be, but it's too short of a class to go through all the details. There are programs out there, especially if you are under a certain income limit, there are programs that will assist you buy your first home. Those are usually government funded, local, city, or county. Talk to a bank or a real estate agent who is familiar with those types of things. Not all of them are. A lot of those real estate agents and banks, they want you to put 20% down. They want you to have, somebody who makes a lot of money, and they just go and buy houses. And a lot of that is happening right now. There's a pretty big housing shortage right now. But I would say if you can get, 10% of price of a house saved, that's a good starting point. You may not actually put 10% down as your equity investment into your house, but there's a lot more that goes into buying a house than just the down payment on the house. You could put 5% down, but you can't go into a house and as soon as you get in there, you're going to want furniture. You're going to want a lot of things to put into that house, and you've got to prepare for repairs. You've got to prepare for all the things that come along with home ownership. And again, I used to teach a 6-hour class just on purchasing a house, going into finances, savings, repairs, those types of things. But just a rule of thumb for me, I would say, hey, if you've got 10%, and today it's tough to find a house under $200,000. If you're lucky if you can find $200,000. Like I said, 20 years ago, I paid $87,000 for my 2,090 square foot house on the northwest side of town. It's jokingly, I always call it kind of the ghetto. I used to serve on the board of the Houston Area Urban League, and my census tract is considered a low income census tract because there's a lot of apartments around it. Nice little neighborhood, but still statistically it was a low income neighborhood. So and if you drive down Antoine near Little York, it's a little bit of a hood sometimes. And so but that's where I live. It's a nice little neighborhood. I like my neighbors. Houses, I just saw a house listed for $259,000 recently in my neighborhood. Somebody coming out of college can't afford a $259,000 house. My daughter, who just got a job, she found a job making $40,000 as an entry level type of person, kind of in a finance position. Hopefully 3 years, 4 years, when her husband gets out of school, together they'll be able to afford something that is what they're looking for. Right now, I'm not encouraging her to go and do that until they've saved some money and after actually they've had a couple of years of being married. I don't want them to get into that's also a big problem for as I said, money is a big problem for people in their relationships, so you want to be as prepared as possible for doing that. So I'm not getting far in my my presentation, so let's keep going. Unless you have any other questions up there, I'm going to go forward to a couple of more important things. This is just going over, where do you save money? Do you leave it at home? Do you give it to a friend or family? Do you put it into a prepaid card, rotating savings and credit association? I've never even heard of that. I kind of know what it is, but I've never encountered anybody who's had one of these or savings account. Stick your money in the bank. There's no reason not to. Just make sure that you shop around and find banks that will not charge you to hold your money for you. There's plenty, especially for students, there are plenty of free checkings and savings accounts out there. Go to a credit union. Sometimes they will actually offer you a little bit of interest rate, whereas a bank may not do it at all for most of their accounts. So just do a lot of shopping around, find a credit union that you can participate in. Don't worry too much about access to ATM fees and things like that, because you can have a savings account in one place, have a checking account to get access to other things. Don't be afraid of the online banks now. A lot of the online banks actually do offer interest rate because they want your money. They don't have a physical building somewhere where you can see them, but you can access their money if you want to. You can pay your bills online with a lot of those online banks. So don't be afraid of those organizations. Just ensure that they are FDIC insured. Make sure that they are an organization that's credible. You should be fine. And you can find all that by doing some research online. So I'm going to skip this because the things that I think are more important are things like this. Okay, just going to go through this real quickly of what these different types of accounts are. Money market deposit accounts, those are essentially savings accounts. They offer more in return than a savings account, but you have very limited withdrawal capabilities of these. So this really is for something that you are going to save more long-term, but you have access to it. CDs, basically you don't have access to it unless you're going to pay a penalty. So if you buy a CD, you go in and say, I want to buy, open a CD for $500. They will say, okay, well, we're paying you 0.5% per year, but you can't get that until that 1 year is up or 6 months is up. However long you're buying it for, you don't have access to it. You can still get access to it, but they're not going to pay you your interest and they're going to charge you a penalty. So you're basically going to end up paying them for holding on to your money. Again, something you don't want to actually do. Savings bonds, really today, not a good place for you to put money. Savings bonds are, 0.5% or something like that. And they don't pay off until about 30 years. So you don't want to put money in savings bonds right now. It is probably the most conservative, safest place to ever put your money. You will get your money back because it's backed by the full faith and guarantee of the United States government, but it's going to take a long time for you to get that money back. My brother was in the Navy. He bought my son a savings bond on his first birthday, and it was a 30-year bond. It still has 5 more years before I can even collect that. Now, he bought it for $56 or something like that, and its face value is $100, but I had to wait. I'm going to have to wait for nearly 30 years to cash that bond in. You can sell those things, but you end up, losing money when you sell them. Retirement accounts, later on for you guys, I would tell you, and everybody will tell you, take full advantage of any 401k matching programs that your employer provides. If you're allowed to put in 15% of your income and they'll match it 7.5%, they'll match half of whatever you put in. I've been in jobs where you put in 3% and they match, 50% of that or 100% of that. Whatever it is, max that amount out. And get an IRA. You don't have to. I have an IRA right now that I did through Schwab, and I spent a lot of time, more time than I should, looking at that account. It doesn't cost you anything. You can make trades. I buy stocks and bonds in there. I bought this account. I put 5,000 in June of this year, and the stuff that I bought right now, the stock I have in there is worth about almost $5,700. Stock market has been up. You can control when you get out of it. It's a good savings vehicle. It's not going to go anywhere, but you can take advantage of rising markets. So it's a good place to put your money into an IRA that's self-directed. You decide what goes into that IRA. So look into that, doing an IRA, even if it is $50, $100, $200, play with it. Find out, use that as a way to know what's going on in the financial markets. Investments such as stocks, corporate bonds, and mutual funds. Again, you can buy those things through an IRA, but if you want to be able to cash those things in, you're just going to buy a normal brokerage account. There's a couple of them out there that are in the news these days where you can just put in $50, $100. My son has one, and he probably only has about $400 or $500 in it. But when somebody tells him, "Oh, AMC is about to start getting shorted, and people are going to try to screw those people over who are shorting that stock," he was aware of it. His value on his brokerage account went up about $200 because he rode that AMC thing that happened earlier this year. And a lot of people know something that goes on in the markets and can give you a little bit of a tip. But that stuff is at risk. Okay, so you could lose that money. Stuff has happened in the past where people lost significant amounts of money in stocks. I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna talk about interest just because I'm a banker just for a couple of minutes, and hopefully you did this in a math class somewhere in the past.
There is one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there a bank you recommend specifically?
No, I would say just find yourself a bank that is going to charge you the least amount of money for the services that you need.
Is that the same with credit unions?
Absolutely. Credit unions, you would think, oh, there's not very many of them around, but a lot of them participate in a program where if you go to one ATM, they won't charge you. You could go to Navy Federal Credit Union and you can use your Shell Credit Union account and get money out of the ATM, and they won't charge you because they have the shared program that allows you to use their ATM without fees. Just do a little research. You can find places to do that. Now, I will tell you, I used to work at BBVA. They got bought out by PNC recently, and I just started getting all this stuff in the mail of, oh, here's your new debit card, here's your new this. I used to have that BBVA account still because I would go to Mexico and there's a BBVA in Mexico, and I could use my debit card down there and they would only charge me a 1% fee and not the international fee or the other fee local that, you know, usually there's a fee for the ATM and then your company charges you a fee. So you get it on both sides. Well, with BBVA, because they were owned by the same company, I could go to Mexico and take money out there and only get charged like 1%. I lost that with PNC taking over the BBVA company here in the US. So I may decide to get rid of that. And just because I have like accounts at 4 different banks right now. Yeah, I've got one at a credit union. I think I've got Chase. I've got Prosperity, of course, here. That's where I get paid through. And I've got BBVA. Any others? I think that's all I have right now. But I've had other banks, and really, no one uses checks anymore. So you want to just be able to find the thing that does what you want it to do. And for a lot of y'all saving money, you just don't want to be charged to be able to save your money. So this saving at home or putting it into a bank. Now this gives an example of paying 2% interest. You're not going to get 2% interest right now anywhere. And that's just a condition of where the economy is right now. But this is just giving the example. You put $1,000 away, you still have $1,000 in 5 years or 10 years. At 2%, you're going to make a little bit of interest in it. Now, this is an interesting thing that you can play with if you want to figure out where you're going to be somewhere down the road by saving money. This is a nice little formula that can tell you what you're going to end up having over a certain amount of time. So this is called the rule of 72. So you divide 72 by the interest rate that you are looking at, and this will tell you how long it will take to double the amount of money that you have. So as an example, you put $50 in a savings account with 2% interest. That's 72, divide that by 2%, you get 36 or just 2. And it takes you 36 years to get that $50 to double to $100. Okay, you're not going to use that. Quite honestly, that's just kind of, hey, that's just showing you the example of compounding interest. Today, you can just stick your numbers into a formula on the internet. I always use interest.com, interest.com. They have a lot of calculators on there that you can use. If you're looking at buying a house, if you're looking at saving something, they have a lot of variable things that you can put in there that says, if I prepay an extra $10 a month, here's how soon I can pay off that loan. Or if I put another $100, or if you do it every 5 months, if you do it every 2 months, a lot of variables that you can play around with on interest.com that allows you to do all this stuff without having to go and get your financial calculator out. Why save for unexpected expenses? Because life happens, because things will occur. I will tell you, I don't know if y'all will do this. It's what I do. It's what I've taught my kids to do. And they've only started really actually using it. Is I do basically almost essentially what looks like a ledger for your checkbook. I take all of my expenses and I put them on a spreadsheet, and I go down the line and my house expense, my water, electricity, my insurance. And if it's something I only pay annually, well, I break that up into 12 payments. I take all my expenses and put them on the left side of a spreadsheet. And on the top of the spreadsheet, I put the days of the week and month and year. So January 1 through January 30th. And I know exactly where my expenses are coming from. And at the bottom, I put how much money I get in my paycheck. And so it's kind of like in an account, basically, like your checking account. But what I end up seeing at the very bottom is how much money I have projected over at certain points of time in the year. That's good for me because I no longer escrow my taxes and insurance through my mortgage company. I just send my mortgage company the principal interest on the loan, but I have to pay at the end of the year my insurance. So I just paid yesterday actually $2,600 for my house insurance for the entire year. Well, that's one big hit. I had to save that during the entire year as if I was making that in my monthly house payment. Come January, the end of January, my taxes are due. That's going to be about $3,000. So I've got to put that in my budget. Every paycheck, a little bit comes out that I save towards my expenses that are coming at the beginning of the year. So do that, give it a shot, see what it looks like. So again, just the days of the week, the days of the year, January 1, 2, 3, 4 through 30, February across the top, all your expenses, and plug in. This is when your credit card bill is due on the 15th. This is when your car bill is due. This is when your, and that budget tells you, am I going to run into a deficiency come January 30th? Do I need to pick up my phone and call the credit card company, say, hey, can I change my due date? I don't want to get hit with a $40 late fee, $50 late fee, because I don't have money in my checking account or in my pocket to pay that. So it's a good tool to project where you're going to be. And I do it kind of on a 3-month rolling basis. You can do that out for a year or 2 years and see where you're going to be just based on what your current expenses are. But you still have expenses that are going to come along that you're not aware of or you don't think of. So that's the first thing you do when you're going to set goals, when you're going to set a budget. Write down every single thing that you have spent money on the past year. Car inspection, phone. What happens if you want a new phone in a year from now, or 6 months from now? It's got to come from somewhere. Start putting money aside. Figure out all the things that you're going to spend money on. Think of all the things, and then put another line item says, here's the emergency stuff. Save for all that. If you can do that on a spreadsheet, you'll be in really, really good shape. It looks like I'm at about 50 minutes already, so I'm going to go ahead and just ask if there's any other questions that people have. And I will tell you guys that the hardest thing for y'all to do, and it's not hard, it depends on your particular capability or your attitude, not spending money. It's real easy to go out, have a good time, but you're going to end up learning if you spend all that money, you will have nothing. The people that are the happiest in that I've found in my life are people who don't have to worry about where the next rent payment is going to come from, where the next car payment is going to do. I convince my kids, hopefully they'll pick it up, that they want to be the people that people turn to when they need help, rather than always being the ones that need help. We all are going to need help someday. Okay. Some of us are going to need to borrow money from a friend, a family member. That's just life. Stuff happens. But if you can save money and be the one that helps others, you'll end up feeling a whole lot better than going to somebody else saying you don't have the money to make a payment. So just take that from a guy who's 51 years old, who never borrowed money from any of his friends. They all return my calls. If you borrow money from people and you don't pay them back, no one wants to be with you. So keep good relationships and do that by saving a little bit of money for yourself. Any questions?
If you have questions, go ahead and hop on the mic or just put it in the chat. If you're typing it, just put questions, so then we know to wait. While we're waiting, so there's a question that I have. So students that are in this program are primarily teachers, and they have the teacher's retirement account. But then there's also the Roth, there's the 401, there's the CDs. What do you suggest for students who want to maximize their options or ability to get the most out of what's being offered and what they can do privately to have a comfortable retirement?
Right. So I actually had a teacher retirement system account at one point. I don't know, I may even still have it out there. I haven't seen anything about it for years, but I used to be a driving instructor, so I had to get certified by the Texas Education Agency, and I did that while I was still in college, actually, and I worked for Houston Community College. But put as much money as possible into your retirement. If you can live, there's going to be some times when you don't have that extra money to save. I mean, if you get it to where you have lots of expenses, you want to be able to pull back your savings to where you can manage your expenses. But for sure, right now, I've got a 401k, I've got an IRA. I wish I had. Your IRA has some limits on it. I can only put in, under normal circumstances, you can only put $5,000 a year into an IRA. Once you hit 50, you're allowed to do catch up, and you put another $1,000 or $2,000 every year into an IRA. And doing it as a Roth or a traditional IRA really depends on where you think you're going to be. I think for most people, the traditional one is a little bit better because you get the tax savings now, and it really is going to depend on, do you think you're going to be making more money later or now? With the traditional IRA, you get to deduct from your income and don't have to pay taxes on that. The Roth IRA is the other way around. You don't get taxed when you actually take the money out once you're retired. So for me, I'm going to be at a higher tax bracket now than when I retire. So right now, I'm trying to reduce, for those of y'all who really want to get interested in this kind of stuff, you want to reduce as much as possible your taxable income, because you're going to pay more the higher your income is. We have a progressive tax policy. Once you get to about under $80,000 of adjusted gross income, you're paying about 12% of your income towards taxes. Above $82,000, you get jacked up to about 22% of your income gets taxed. So, if you're making $100,000 and you're getting taxed at 22%, you're paying $22,000 to the IRS. If you get it down to $80,000, then you're only going to pay 12% of that, which is going to be about $8,600. So just something for y'all to think about. Talk to, there's a bunch of shows out there, either YouTube or different places. This may be a long-term type of thing because you may not have the income right now to do this kind of stuff. But before I came to work for this bank, I was self-employed. I was actually writing off as much as I could, so to reduce the amount of taxes that I actually had. And the first year that I was here, I still had that business kind of in name, and I still had a few of the expenses, and I was still doing a few of the things, cleaning up some of that stuff. But I was able to, and half of the year I was employed, half the year I was self-employed. I was able to use my self-employed write-offs to reduce my taxable income of my W-2 wages through an employer. So there's lots of different things that you can do to not have to pay those taxes that will save you money. And one of those things was put money into your IRA. I put this year, actually, I put $10,000 into IRAs, 5,000 for me and 5,000 for my wife. We put that into our IRAs and it counted against the 2020 taxes, and that reduced my tax liability. So there's a lot of planning that you need to do to try to maximize how you can get money or save money to be able to reduce your tax liability, but also to save money. So TRS will put on webinars. I've been to lots of other places that have done these things. They'll tell you, here's how you want to plan for your retirement. Here's how you want to plan for savings. Attend all of those things that they put out there. They can give you some very good information. Avoid the stuff that they're trying to sell you extra stuff. Find stuff that doesn't cost you money. If they have products and services that they want to sell you, they're making a commission off of it sometimes if they get some things. As I mentioned, there's a few different places. You can do it through Schwab, or you can do through Fidelity. There's lots of different places where you can open up your own IRA, and they have online trainings and online classes to tell you how you can go about figuring out how to save money for retirement and for other things as well.
So we have one more question. I have my savings in my checking account. Should I change it to a savings account?
No, you need to have access to money. What you need to be able to do, though, is have them at the same place to be able to move money from one to the other at your leisure whenever you want to. If they actually are paying you a interest on your savings account, put as much money in that savings account as possible. When you need to write a check, or no one writes checks, if you need to pay a bill online, move money there to be able to do it. I am getting a little bit frustrated myself. I said I got 4 bank accounts. I get paid through my Prosperity account. Then I had to move money into the other accounts and move money into that account, because some of those other accounts still had auto debit going on for different loans that I have for different things. So, but no, you should hang on to your checking account. A lot of times it's much easier to pay for things using a checking account, and it's just a little simpler thing to be able to do.
So it's okay to not have a savings account. It's okay to just keep checking and savings in your checking account.
No, I would actually have a savings account. You want to pretend that you don't, though. You want to put money there and forget about it. If you don't look at that all the time, you won't think about spending it. You're kind of playing games with yourself, but sometimes those little games help us get to where we want to go. Use that savings account. Say, I'm not touching this unless this happens, or unless this happens. If it's an emergency, I'm not touching that. Because if it's just sitting in your checking account and you see that balance, somebody's going to say, hey, we're going to go to Six Flags, but we need you to drive and we need this. And you're going to go, oh, okay.
Right.
Sitting in that savings account, you can fool yourself into savings. You can make it harder for you to access it, and it makes it easier for you in the long run. So do have a separate account for those things.
So a question just came in. So if we make a savings account, keep it with the same bank. I'm assuming keep it with the same bank as the checking account.
Yeah. That's a better thing to do. Most of the time, if you do have a checking account, they offer you that savings account for free. And a lot of times they'll say you won't have, if you're college students, for sure, you're going to find a bank that has a free checking account for college students. They want you to be their customer. Once you get out of college, get a job, they're going to offer you that free stuff. My kids had the same account. I opened an account for them in high school. When they got into college, it changed into a college account, and they still have that. And to them, it's a bother to go find a new bank. So that's what the banks and any business counts on, making it you not wanting to have to go and do things. So they keep you as a customer. So I've got just over an hour, so I'm not trying to rush anybody off, but I do want to make sure that if y'all have any questions, write down my email. Like I said, I've run some nonprofits before. I've worked for nonprofits. I've done a lot of what I think is good stuff. I have a niece who's a teacher at, I'm going to get the name wrong, Rosnovsky Elementary up there on the north side of town. I have another sister who's a teacher. She's living in Easton, Pennsylvania. And I have a niece who's a teacher out in Katy. So be happy to answer any questions later on that y'all might have, either about financial stuff or if I can give you some, what they go through in their teaching career. My email is Joseph, Joseph .Gonzalez, Gonzalez,
ALSPH.GONZALEZ
at Prosperity Bank USA. And it's .com.
.USA or Prosperity Bank USA?
ProsperityBankUSA.com.
Okay.
Yep. So y'all have some questions. Somebody else that wants advice, questions about other stuff dealing with bank or affordable housing or any kind of stuff like that. I'm always a resource, always here, be happy to help out or give you a reference or referral to somebody else who might be able to help you with your questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Are we good to go? Okay, everyone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the survey in the link now in the chat. Once you complete the survey, you are free to go. Go ahead and click on it. Go ahead and take it. And if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Go ahead and hop on the mic. Before you leave, please drop a reaction for Mr. Joseph. Give him a high five or a star in the chat, just so that he knows that you're appreciated. Write a thank you. We want to make sure we're appreciative of all of our guests.
Oh, I see all the hands. Hey, thank y'all. Like I said, this is the fun part of my job, so I appreciate the opportunity.